or visit us at freedomtalkradioonline.com.
Yeah, warm welcome. It's Andy. It's Two Peas in the Podcast. It's a Sunday. We've got Mary Tocco, childhoodshots.com, and researcher Christina England, vaccineinjustice.co.uk. Nice to meet you both. Let's start with, I've only just recently spoken to Christina. You know, we've all had our own issues with life and vaccines, and I was very surprised to hear Sally El Cordy had died and Brandy. I mean, what a fantastic pair of campaigners. And of course, as you know, Mary and Christina knows Dr. Carly is out the scene. I think they're knocking us all off, aren't they?
Yes, they are, unfortunately. Sally was a dear friend of mine, and I did many shows with her for a very long time, and it was heartbreaking to hear that she'd died. And Brandy died within a few weeks of her. Brandy had been to my conference, because I did a big conference in the UK on the HPV vaccine, and that was in 2018. And Brandy came and she did a fantastic lecture there, and it went so well. And then suddenly she'd gone. She just died. Her son found her dead when he came home from school. And yet she was one of the healthiest people I knew. She was into all kinds of health foods, and I mean, she lived such a healthy life. It was just amazing. And she was very young. And she was such a lovely, vibrant personality. She was just fantastic. So it was just heartbreaking to lose them both at the same time.
Mm-hmm. So we've got to fight even harder, Mary, haven't we, to get our information out there very quickly?
Yes.
I actually knew Sally as well. She and I talked on a regular basis. I've been at conferences in New York where she was out there on the streets, and we kept in close contact. And I was really sad to hear when she passed away as well. And then I was at a conference with Miss Vaughn as well, probably a year before she passed away. In fact, I think she was at a conference with me called Save Long Island. That was it was a whole panel of people. There were probably 15 or 20 of us that spoke over the weekend. And we had Janet Griffin, we had Charlotte Iserby, who exposed the downing dumb of all of our students in America and the dumbing down of our whole educational program. And of course, Janet Griffin is known for The Creature of Jekyll Isle, the book exposing our Federal Reserve, how fraudulent it is. So it was an incredible get together of people. And I believe that's why I saw Ms. Vaughn. So, but it is, you know, we never know when our last days are here serving.
No, we don't. I mean, I spoke to both of them the day before they died at different times. And so it's been really hard. And Brandy and I were on regular telephone contact, and we got on so well. And it's just heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking to lose two such pioneers and such fantastic people. And they really did push no vaccines. I mean, I think that was Sally's downfall, unfortunately, because she wanted to ban vaccines. I don't think banning vaccines is ever going to happen, although a lot of us would love that to happen, but it won't. It won't happen. Not completely. But we might be able to get rid of one at a time. We might be able to get rid of a few.
Well, even if we stop mandating them here in the United States. So I just learned today that the UK, they're not mandated. In the
No,
United
we don't
States,
mandate.
we are the most vaccinated population on the earth. And our children are mandated to get into school, that they will need, well, just what they're pushing here, 38 different vaccinations by the time a child is 18 months of age.
Yes. And
so,
many of those are triple vaccines and 5-in-1s and things. So they're not really 38. You're going to get a lot more vaccines in that. And that's where they catch it.
Oh,
I mean, they're pushing the whooping cough vaccination for pregnant women out here in the UK, and yet you can't get a single whooping cough vaccination. but that is what they're saying it is, but it's not. We all know it's a 3-in-1. It's got to be a DPT. You won't get a single whooping cough. You don't get a single vaccine for tetanus. And yet they're saying that, you've got to have your tetanus vaccine if you cut yourself or whatever in the hospitals. And yet, I remember my son who sadly died not so long ago. Him going, he had a cut, I think it was a cut ankle. He fell off his skateboard he had. And we went up to the hospital, and they wanted to give him a tetanus vaccine, and he said, "No, I don't want one, thank you." And I was there with him, and he said, "But you've got to have one." He said, "It's he said, if it will help you." And my son said, "Do you know who my mother is?" And I'm sitting there thinking, "Oh my word!" So he says, "Do you know my mother's written a book on this? She knows better than you do." And so I said, "Well, I don't know that I do, Dan." And he says, "No, I don't want the vaccine." And so this poor doctor said, well, I've written papers and I've spoken at Harley Street. And Daniel said, "And so has my mother." And so this poor doctor, so he said, "Well, are you going to have one or not?" He said, "No, I'm going to take a rain check." And it was so funny. And he said to me, "Why don't you send him your book?" So I did. I don't know what happened, but I did send him the book. Yeah, I mean, he was trying to get him, and I was saying to the doctor, "No, it's not a single vaccine. You're trying to say it's a single vaccine." And he said, "Of course it is." And I said, "Prove it. Prove to me, take it out of the box and prove to me that that is a single shot and it's not a DPT." And of course he couldn't, because it isn't, it's a DPT.
That's right. And the reason they started doing these combination shots is because, of course, there's more vaccines on the marketplace. No parent is going to let their child go in and get 10 or 12 injections in one visit. So they combine.
No.
And I will tell you right now, based on my 45 years of research, there is not one long-term safety study on what happens when you take multiple different vaccinations and combine them into what I call a vaccine cocktail. And I too have written a book. My book is called Natural Immune Development, A Deeper Understanding. And I talk all about how powerful our immune system is and how God did not make mistakes when he created us.
No.
And man comes along and they think they can improve on what God has made. And they get into laboratories and they start combining animal viruses and human viruses and all kinds of toxic chemicals and pollutants that you wouldn't eat, let alone consider injecting. And they say that they're going to make you healthy. They're going to protect you. When in fact, no safety studies to prove any of that. And I know that the CDC is like considered an authority in the world. The World Health Organization follows what they recommend all the time. And they cannot show one properly done safety study on any vaccination where they use a double-blind placebo study. So these vaccines do not get studied as a normal drug would get. If they're trying to get a drug approved, they spend millions of dollars, they spend 10 years doing the trials in the proper process, and then a drug will get approved. Vaccines do not go through that. They are looked at.
No, they don't.
2 to 3 days to 2 or 3 weeks, and then they're put out in the marketplace as though they're safe.
Yeah, it's shocking. I mean, the HPV vaccine, the amount of aluminium that's in that, or aluminum, as you would say, the amount of aluminium that's in it is ridiculous. And there's no safety limit. There isn't a safety limit. It's never been tested. They don't know how safe it is. And yet they put all this aluminium into the vaccines. And the vaccines are just killing the children. They're killing them. They're maiming them. They're making them disabled. Some of the horror stories that I've seen and heard of. Unfortunately, we've lost another dear friend, Frida Biddle, recently, and she had a stroke, and I think she's in a care home now, but she obviously doesn't do any of her work, and she was really one of the leading people in HPV vaccine research, and she knew just about everything about it. And she was in Parliament, she was going backwards and forwards to the House of Lords. Suddenly she had a stroke, and of course she can't do it anymore, and it's shocking. but there are still people fighting to get the HPV vaccine looked at in more detail and properly studied, because so many children are being injured with it. And of course, they don't give it to them just that vaccine. They get 2 or 3 in one go.
Well, for those of you who don't understand the role of aluminum, aluminum is put in vaccinations because it is an adjuvant. A vaccine is completely useless without an adjuvant. The role of an adjuvant is to stimulate the immune system for many, many, many days. In a way, it's actually irritating the immune system to turbocharge its reaction to whatever is in that vaccination.
Yes.
What they don't look at is they don't look at all of the other ingredients that the immune system is responding to as well. So the only study done in the whole United States that I've ever been aware of on using aluminum on infants was called the Aspen study in 1994. And all they looked at there was what happens to children who are born prematurely in the hospitals, unknown to all of us at the time. They were getting IV nutrition, perinatal nutrition, that contained high levels of aluminum. And they decided to see what could the consequences be of giving them nutrition with aluminum. So they took 200 infants, 100 of those infants who were in the ICU, they reduced the amount of aluminum down, they filtered it out somehow. And then they left the aluminum levels normal in the other 100 babies. And the conclusion of that study was that anything over 20 micrograms of aluminum injected into an infant could lead to kidney failure, or renal failure as it's known. And the follow-up of that, the children who got the full load of aluminum in their parenteral nutrition had neurological delays that showed up at 18 months of age. And they followed those children for 12 more years and found out that they had bone density problems because of the aluminum as well. So remember, 20 micrograms was the level they thought was safe. Well, the first vaccination they give babies in this country, hepatitis B, which was designed for drug users, prostitutes, and people who are out having multiple sexual partners. When they could not get this hepatitis B vaccination to the prostitutes and the drug users, they went to Congress and said, well, we've got a vaccine for hepatitis, let's give it to the babies. They literally studied it on, I think, under 100 babies. They watched them for 3 days and said, oh, it's good, let's go, let's do it. They added it to the infant program. And now in the United States, if you have a child born in a hospital, they are asking you to give this to your child. They say it's a requirement. My job for years has been shouting to the parents that you don't have to do this, and you don't have to do any vaccinations in any state before they go to school at the age of 4 or 5, or until they're a daycare. So please don't give them anything until you've done your research, because that first vaccination that they're giving to babies within hours of their first breath contains 250 micrograms of aluminum. And then when a baby goes in for their well baby visits, that, again, I don't even recommend that. I tell parents to avoid your appointments. Babies that are sick need a doctor. Babies that are well don't need a doctor. I've been saying that for years. And if you take them in for their well baby visit, which the purpose of that visit is to vaccinate their children.
Yes.
That child, by the time they're 18 months in the US, will get 4,925 micrograms of aluminum through their vaccinations. And if they do the COVID vaccination, that number goes well over 5,000 micrograms of aluminum. So what we're doing here in the US, I believe, is literally criminal and has never been proven safe or effective.
No, Chris Exley would say that. I did an interview with Chris Exley for my HPV conference because he was unable to go. And he wanted to speak, but he was unable to go because it was at the weekend, and he's got family and he likes to be with his family at the weekends. And so we recorded a video, but unfortunately that video has been taken down by YouTube. However, I'll see if I can find a copy of it and see if we can find a copy of it on my computer, which I'm due to get back any day. And if it's on the computer, I will get a copy to Andy, and perhaps we can put it somewhere else, because it was a brilliant. He's a man that, well, they call him Mr. Aluminium, and he is fantastic. And there's nothing he doesn't know about aluminium. And what he says about the HPV vaccine, which is what we were doing at the time, is unbelievable. And
yes, it does. I think it does contain about 225 micrograms of aluminum.
Yeah.
And it's a neurotoxin. We all know aluminum is a neurotoxin.
And of course, it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and that's the problem.
It does. It actually opens it up. But what they tell you to confuse you is they say, well, mother's milk, breast milk has aluminum in it. They say that food has aluminum in it, and our air has aluminum in it, and that we're all exposed to aluminum, and that if it was that dangerous, right, it would be hurting everybody. What they don't tell you is the difference between injecting and breathing it in and ingesting it. Our body is designed to get rid of these things. It chelates it out of our colon, and it naturally will address it in our air, but it doesn't do that when you inject it, because those things do not belong in the fluid highway system of the body. And most doctors don't even know about the fluid highway system. So when I was writing my book, doing research, and this is about 5 years ago, I discovered that the medical researchers discovered a new organ in the body in 2000, and I believe it was 19 or 18. They discovered a new system in the body called the fluid highway system, or the interstitium. And they did not know that this fluid highway system, years before, is connected to everything. It's floating. It's like your body has this floating medium in it that connects every tissue, every cell, every ligament, every tendon, every organ, and the brain to whatever you get injected to. And I used to try to figure out, how do some kids get a vaccine and it causes diabetes? Some kids get a vaccine and it causes brain injury, like autism or seizure disorders. How does some children get a vaccine and it causes asthma? Or some children go into kidney failure. And I could not figure out how it's injuring these children so differently. And then I discovered this new organ that medical science didn't even know about. And then it all made sense to me. You know, a child will get injected in the thigh, they'll get injected in the other thigh, and then in the arm. And all of this gets into our fluid highway system. Depending upon where it travels will determine where.
Yes, that's what Chris says. Yes, that's what Chris actually says.
Right, where they settle in your body. They get they get absorbed into different organs, tissues, and cells. And like you said, many of them get up into the blood-brain barrier. And then we have neurological deficit, neurological problems. We have anxiety, depression, seizure disorders. So really,
Alzheimer's, early on, dementia.
And again, the doctors don't consider the accumulation of these toxins in the body. They have never studied it.
No. And there's a simple way of getting rid of it as well, because if we drink silica-rich mineral water, that helps to get rid of it out of the body. Chris actually also speaks a lot about that one as well.
Well, there's a lot we can
spritzer.
do. My saying is, let's stop injuring the children so that we don't have to figure out ways to heal and mop up the mess. Because, you know, we will never know the full potential of a child who's been vaccine injured. We might be able to regain their language. We might be able to get them to read. They might be able to start being socially more acceptable. But the bottom line is, we never know what their potential was and what was robbed of them.
No, that's true. Absolutely.
Yeah, I know a good friend where we live at the moment, and they've got a son. He's got autism, ADHD, whatever it is. He hasn't spoken ever, and he's about 14 now or 13. And you know what? It's depressing. The person's there, but they're not there because they can't communicate very well. Although they have machines, we're not saying it's vaccine damage in every case, but it's just a shame that you have to have all this aluminium or whatever you want to call it, aluminum, in your bodies. Why can't, if you're going to have a vaccine, why can't they make 100% safe vaccine?
There isn't such a thing, Andy. That's why they can't. There isn't, is there?
No, that's true.
There was used to be. Well, I think it still exists. It's a website called SaneVax, and that was safe, necessary. Oh, I can't remember all the words. It was SaneVax. Necessary. What was it? Safe, effective, necessary, and
excuse me,
efficient. I can't remember what they stood for, but the SaneVax. But the trouble was, I mean, it was a brilliant website, and they were slating it was really for the HPV vaccine. But the problem was there wasn't. It was safe, affordable, necessary, and effective vaccines. That's what it stood for. I knew I'd remember. It's a long time ago. It's an awful long time ago that I was involved with that, but you couldn't. There wasn't any way that anybody could prove that there was such a thing as a safe, affordable, necessary, and effective vaccine, because there isn't such a thing.
I agree 100%. They have never studied any of the combinations put together. And to think, now you and I know that if somebody is on a medication and they're taking other medications, those medications can have a bad reaction and cause problems.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
they always say, what drugs are you on before they give you, there's counterindications, right? How would you know? A couple of things. If a brand new child is going to be allergic to any of the toxic vaccine ingredients, a day that they're born, or 2 months later, or 4 months later, or 6 months later, or a year, how would you know if they're allergic to anything in a vaccination when they can't talk to you, they can't communicate, they can't say, I have a headache, all they can do is cry. And many times when parents get their child vaccinated and that child cries for 24 hours and finally passes out and they're never the same, the doctors say that's normal. They say, oh, that's nothing. It's not related to a vaccine.
How can you say it's normal if you take a healthy child into a doctor's surgery and you come out with an unhealthy child because they've got a side effect of the vaccine? It's not normal.
And
a side effect of
it's I was going to say, some people are allergic to one antibiotic and it can kill them, or one medication and it can kill them. How would we ever know what these babies are allergic to or going to respond to the first couple of years of life? In fact,
yes.
You mentioned we'll never get away with vaccines. You'll never do away with them, right?
Yeah.
This is my hypothesis. I would like to see us stop all vaccination before the age of 2, and then no longer make it mandatory. So in the United States, every pediatrician, every doctor, our CDC, every television station, every radio news station, everyone promotes the vaccines as being safe and necessary. And if you don't get them, your children will die, all of that. How about if we just stop doing them until they're 2, like we did years ago, before autism existed? You see, a child's immune system is brand new when they're born, and it's underdeveloped. Just like their brain, their bones, their lung, their kidneys, everything is fully functioning, but underdeveloped. And the process of life helps them to develop. As a child is going through life, they're being exposed constantly to new spores and fungus and mildew and viruses and bacteria. When a toddler is crawling along the floor, picking up things that they don't, and they put everything in their mouth, we don't even see half of what they're being exposed to. But their immune system is learning about their environment. It's learning about the air and the bacteria and the dirt and the soil. And that's how it learns. And in the process of learning, a baby will have frequent fevers. They'll have runny noses. They'll have swollen
Yeah.
limbs. They'll have diarrhea. They'll have little rashes on their bum because that's how the immune system functions and filters out things that it's processing every day, thousands of times a day. An infant and a child is going through this.
Yes.
So I have 5 grown adult children, and we never vaccinated our children. Unfortunately, my ex-husband died, but he was a chiropractor, and we never gave our children a drug. We never took them to a pediatrician or a doctor unless they had a broken bone, and that happened a couple times throughout our life. But now I have 13 grandbabies who are being raised completely outside the medical model, just like I raised them. And I have taught parents how to do this across the country over the years of my radio show that I had, years and years of doing many conferences as a keynote speaker. I've been doing this for about 35 years. So I've reached a lot of people and teaching them, how do we do this? We pull away from the medical model that's goal is to drug your children and to get them stuck on medication. So you pull away from that. And when you pull away from that, you have to learn and understand how our immune system functions, what that looks like. And that's what my book is all about. How do we do this? How do we raise our children naturally without feeding them all of this medication and all of these drugs and all of these vaccines? And that's really what young parents need to know, because they use fear to drive people in for vaccines.
Yes, I know. Yeah, they do.
That's their method. And without fear, and again, I'm surprised that it's non-compulsory in your country. You need to really protect that.
Yes, it's never been compulsory here, has it? In the UK.
Apart from the vulnerable, like I suppose if your child's in care, there's been a recent, CPS care, social services. There's been recent reports that because the parent doesn't have parental responsibilities, then the foster carers can,
But
do that to the child. But otherwise, it's not compulsory. No.
no, it's not compulsory. But if the child's in the care system, as Andy says, then they are vaccinated. It's and even if it's against the parents' wishes, because there was recently, I think it was Islington in London, there was a High Court case where the judge overruled the mother because the child was in care, or the child had been in care, and the child was back with the parents, back with the mum, but they were still assessing her. And she's refused the vaccinations because she was fearing autism. And the judge overruled her, and the child was taken back into care and vaccinated. So,
and I know that there are going to be cases
that happens.
I know that that's going to happen. It happens in the United States too. If a couple is going through a divorce and one of them says, well, we didn't vaccinate, but now I want my child vaccinated for different reasons.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is if you can show that you have done a good job raising your children healthy, like, do you have naturopathic and homeopathic physicians in the UK?
Mm.
Do you?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes.
If you could show that you have gone to doctors with your children, like I don't tell people don't ever go to the doctor. I tell them that when you go to a pediatrician, their job is to vaccinate your children. That is the whole purpose of a pediatrician. And that's not based on my opinion. It's based on Robert Mendelsohn, who wrote a book called Raising Your Children. He wrote a book, Raising Healthy Children in Spite of Your Doctor. And I used to have it on my website, and you have to order it now online. It's almost out of print. But he says the purpose of the pediatrician is to indoctrinate your children into a lifelong dependency on medical intervention. He says, don't go to pediatrician. Go to a general practitioner. Go to a naturopath. Go to a homeopath. Or find a medical doctor that is going to honor and respect your wishes. Read books. Get educated. Don't just say, oh, I'm not vaccinating, because that's not going to work. You have to you have to know why you're not vaccinating. And again, I have been doing this for many, many, many years. And when I started speaking in 1995 in the United States, I was one of 2 or 3 people that were willing to get out and talk about it. And so I've been around the block a long time, but I've created educational material for families to make it easy on them to sit down, put on their computer and watch hours and hours and hours of my lectures. I had to order books. I had to read those books. I then had to transpose it and type it onto a piece of paper. Then I had to enlarge it, and I had to put it in an overhead projector on transparencies when I started doing lectures. That's how it was.
It was very hard for me. Yes.
It was tough work, but I did it. I'd put my kids to bed at night, and I would sit at the computer and at my typewriter, and I would open the books and I would look for a key, statement that I needed to get out there.
Statement, yeah.
It was a lot of work. You guys have it very easy now out there. And again, just to let you know, on my website, I have a 6-part DVD series that goes all the way back to our first polio vaccine done in this country. And then it goes all the way to the HPV vaccine, the Gardasil vaccine, talking about all the dangers. It's available by download on my website.
Yeah.
You can get all 6 parts, or you can get one of those parts. And part 3, I go into toxic vaccine ingredients, because if you knew what they were injecting into your baby or your child or in you with the flu vaccine, I think you'd probably take a chance getting the flu. I think you'd rather have a week of measles or a week of whooping cough or a week of chickenpox with your babies.
Let's face it, we've a lot of us have been through them all. I've had chickenpox, I've had measles, I've come into contact with mumps over and over again, and I've been fine. I'm completely healthy and fine. I mean, I've got osteoporosis, but other than that, I'm fine. And that was genetic, I think. It's sort of handed down. My nan had it, my mum had it. It was just one of those things.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm fairly healthy. I don't vaccinate. I haven't had any vaccines. My son, who's sitting he's in his room at the moment, he hasn't had any vaccines since I adopted him. Okay. He did have a couple of flu vaccines, because at the time I really didn't know that they weren't safe, and that was very early on when I first had him, and that was because he's got a weak chest and gets pneumonia a lot. But he hasn't had them for years and years. And to be honest, he's healthier now than he's ever been. Never goes to the doctor. Never ever goes to the doctor. The only thing he's been to the doctor for recently was because his ears got bunged up with wax, because he's got microcephaly. He's microcephalic. He's got a small head, and all his tubes are very small. He's very tiny. And he gets blocked up very easily. But that's the only thing he's had them cleared.
Well, I grew up with 10 brothers and sisters, and I grew up in a town outside of Detroit, Michigan, and everybody got all of the normal childhood illnesses. Yeah. Nobody died. And in part 1 of my DVD series, I talk about how death rate from all of the infectious killers of the early 1900s, the death rate from all of those had dropped dramatically when we started filtering out water, good sanitation. We started implementing toilets and sewer systems and got away from outhouses. We started having running water in the homes, hot water. We started learning about how to be clean in probably about 1910 to 1915. And then my mother was born in 1924, and they didn't do any vaccines. And then it was like, I was born in the 50s, and that's when they first started taking him to the schools. But the first big polio program in this country did not start until 1964. So think about that. All those years beforehand, the death rate from all of the infectious killers, including influenza, was almost down to nothing. We're talking a couple hundred people dying a year in the country. Now we have a measles outbreak, and one child dies.
We have a measles outbreak every year. There's always a measles outbreak.
because it's not gone. They're not eradicating anything, people. They're changing. They're changing the way our body expresses it. When they vaccinate, they're not eradicating it. They're changing the way your immune system responds. It's a very different. They're messing with our immune systems like never before in history. So
it's horrific. It's horrific.
COVID-19, it gave me fast heart rate, and I'm pretty certain there's no evidence, but well, there is evidence now. There wasn't at the time, but I'm sure it gave me. I had a cancer in my kidney that was probably there 10, 20 years, the surgeon said. But then I said, look, the only thing I've done differently, I'm always been this and that. I said, the only thing different is I had a jab recently for COVID-19. Of course, the surgeon won't agree with you, but he did say at the time, that's interesting.
Well, they are calling it turbo cancer now. We have more people in the U.S. dying of cancer than ever. People that didn't have cancer before they took their jabs. And now all of a sudden, it's not just, you have a brain tumor. It's turbo cancer. It's not, you have colon cancer, stage 1 or 2. It's stage 4 when they discover it. Everything, it's like turbo cancering. And it's very common. The evidence is out there that COVID shot, the multiple different ones, cause turbo cancers along with many other things.
Yeah.
That makes people think, though, doesn't it? Sorry. It makes people think that, they're trying to kill us, depopulate, but I know that's an argument for another day. Let's quickly go on to the autism rates. There's 700,000 autistic people of last year in the UK. That's 1 in 100. And this bit's scary. 80 to 90% of all children have had some kind of vaccine regular. Now, if they're having all them vaccines regular, why is there still these diseases we just mentioned? That bit I don't get either.
Well, I love that. Oh, go on. You can go, Christina.
I love it when they sort of blame the unvaccinated for causing the problem. They'll say, well, you're not vaccinated, so we've got to have caught it from you. And so we say, well, if the vaccines were safe and effective, you wouldn't have it anyway, so you wouldn't have to fear me. And then that's where it always falls down. People think they're so clever by saying, well, it's the unvaccinated that's causing the problem. But of course we're not. We're the ones that should worry if there was anything going round.
Well, because we're not vaccinated. They are designed to shed. I know
that.
And so if you, in fact, in this country, they say you can't be around, like a mother will have a new baby. She gets the DTaP vaccine while she's pregnant. She has a new baby. And in order for grandma and grandpa to come into the room to see her new baby, or even after the baby's home, they say, grandma and grandpa, you have to have a DTaP now because you could cause this little infant to have pertussis, which is very dangerous in very young children. So grandma and grandpa get the DTaP vaccine. And the study came out. And again, I document all of this on my DVD and in my book. A study came out where they looked at orangutans. They gave them the DTaP vaccination. And then they followed those orangutans. And they found that the orangutans actually could shed it. They carried it in their mouth, in their saliva, in their breath. They could shed it for up to 21 days to other animals. And they found out that the vaccine sheds. So we're telling grandparents to get a vaccination that is capable of shedding to the infant that they're going to be holding and breathing on. None of it makes scientific sense. None of it. It's all propaganda. It's all for money. It's all brainwashing. And enough is enough, people. We need to stop trusting people in white coats because they do not know. They don't know what I know about vaccinations. And I never went to medical school. People will say, well, why should we listen to Mary Tocco? I'm like, well, because I've been researching it for over 45 years now. I've been publicly speaking since 1995. I've written books. I've authored. I basically am an expert on what goes into vaccinations and why they harm you, because that's what I've been looking at for years. Doctors don't look at any of that. I challenge.
No, they don't.
Go to your doctor if you feel the need and ask them, what's in this vaccine? If they're coming with a flu shot, well, doctor, how much aluminum is in that vaccine? And is there any thimerosal mercury in that vaccine? They won't know the answer. I have the answers. You might have the answers, Christine. We have the
I got
answers.
some of the answers, yes.
We have been looking at this and researching it and deep diving for so many years at information they refuse to look at.
I think where I came in was really, I was looking at the vaccines, I was interested in the vaccines, and I felt that there was something that wasn't quite right about it all. But I really came in from the false accusation side, because so many people I was coming into contact with when I started to research the vaccines had been falsely accused of harming their child.
Me too.
And that's where I came in on it all. And that's how I got to know Andy, because I was one of the parents that was falsely accused of Munchausen's by proxy. And I started looking into it. And my child, it had on his foster care diaries that he was injured with the vaccine. And so I adopted 2 children, both boys, both disabled, both had autism,
Wow.
although I didn't know that at the time. And so I brought both of them up. Unfortunately, Daniel died 2 years ago, but it was a brain tumor. But it's just that's where I came in. I got falsely accused, and it wasn't until I really had challenged everything and I'd really won the case, because I didn't have the children taken into care. The children were just on the at-risk register, and only for the minimum time of 3 months, which that's all. Nothing else happened, and I had no police involved, nothing. But they wanted really to take the children back off me, and I fought it and proved my case. And it wasn't until I wanted, to literally get rid of social services altogether that I had a meeting, and social services said to me, yes, well, mistakes were made in your case, Miss England, and we're very sorry about that, but the mistakes were made and reports weren't read, but if you ever dare to go to the media and tell them about what happened, we'll be down on you and watch your back. So I said, is that a threat? So he said, no, Miss England, it's just a warning, and just a friendly warning. So I turned around and said, okay, I won't go to the media. So what did I do? I trained to be a journalist and became the media and did it that way. And I did expose them, and I exposed them in my book.
Wow.
So
yes,
I exposed them. I showed all the paperwork, everything.
Well, it's so good to know that God is using people around the world like you. Because,
Thank you.
when I was doing this, 1995, I think I started lecturing publicly when I had 3 young children. And I started standing up in my community, fighting the laws, fighting the mandates. And I did not know where God was going to take this. And people would say, who's going to listen to you, Mary? You're not a doctor. And I would say,
No, I've had that.
I would be like, I don't care. If I can save one baby, one child, one
Yes.
family, the devastation of a child who, like you said, dies or is injured and leads to their death, or is injured and can no longer live a healthy life, that's okay. Then I've reached one child. I had no idea what the Lord was going to do with my information. I had no idea that I would produce a DVD in 2006, a 2-part DVD series. When DVDs were coming out, I was one of the first people to produce a DVD. I had no idea what God was going to do with that. I had no idea that I would eventually be a radio host and be reaching people on the internet through all different means. God will use us where we're at. And it's
first came into contact with you through Facebook.
Did you?
And my son actually got hold of you as well.
Wonderful. All of my YouTubes have been turned. I can't get a YouTube channel. When I want to comment on this YouTube, I can't. They say sign in, and they won't let me have a channel on YouTube. They've gotten rid of all of my stuff.
They've got rid of a lot of mine.
I don't know if people see what I post on Facebook, because I think that they're also shadow banning me, because I used to post things and I would get 150 comments from all over. Now, if I get 2 or 3, it's a big deal. So I'm glad to hear
Yeah.
that people might still be seeing me on Facebook. Do you see my posts by chance?
Yeah,
No, I don't see your posts, not
I
anymore.
do, yeah. You're posting
I
regularly.
don't. I may not be friends with you anymore on Facebook, but we can rectify that because I lost everything. I was hacked and lost
Okay.
everything.
Yes.
That was when my son died. So I can reconnect with you because I was friends with you and I did see your work,
Yes.
but I haven't for a long time.
And again, I don't know, but my website, and just so you know, I don't put out emails and I don't do any kind of real marketing of my website, but my website has been around since 2006 and I've always improved it as we go. And it's childhoodshots.com. And so people can go on there and get all kinds of free articles about, how to eat when you're breastfeeding. So I had 4 of my babies born at home with midwives. And that in itself was such an education and such a beautiful experience that
I bet it was, yeah.
I try to impart my knowledge to other parents who might consider it. And if you can't do a home birth and find a midwife, then by all means, go to a birthing center. But I have tons of free articles for people: how to eat when you're nursing, how to start introducing foods to your baby. All of those things related to raising children was my passion. And so all of that's on my website for free. But I do have a few educational products that I sell, which helps me to continue my work. My website is not free. Nothing's free, right? So I have to do sell some products. And my DVD series, as I said, I've made it so affordable for people to either get it on a USB port where you plug it into your computer and you've got it, or you download it, because I am on a mission to reach parents and to help them make this very difficult decision that is very controversial and can cause family fights and family feuds. I get that. I've been dealing with, mother-in-laws that don't agree, and relatives that don't agree, and sisters and brothers that are doctors that don't agree. All of that's very difficult. But we can do this. We have to unite, and we need support from one another. And you need to know where you can go for answers when you're dealing with these issues.
Yes, yes. I've been helping for a long, long time parents that have been falsely accused, and I have managed to get some of them out of prison. So that was it's quite an achievement. My latest one was, I can't mention the person's name because he doesn't want me to, but he was on life without parole for killing his little girl after a vaccine. And he hadn't touched her. He hadn't, and I proved it. They even used the wrong baby scans in his case, and I was probably the first journalist ever to write a report for the court. He begged me to, and I had to have it all sealed with wax seals and everything by a notary public, and I had to go to a special lawyer and everything, and I did all that, and I sent the report in, and he's free now. He's free man.
Praise God. Christina, I'm so proud of you. One of the things that I was telling Andy, I've been working on a report on SIDS and sudden unexplained death.
Oh, yeah.
And what I have uncovered, that in the United States, our autopsies are not done properly to determine the cause of death. And they purposely do not do toxicology studies on tissue.
I was going to say that, yeah.
And lungs and heart. And I have about a 20-something page report I'm willing to send anybody for free, that you can go to a coroner with in your neighborhood or your area and say, look, are you doing proper autopsies? We have to start exposing this. And I'm willing to give it to anybody for free, because I want to help people who lost their babies to sudden infant death, or they say shaken baby syndrome, which many times is a lie. I believe most
you can't shake a baby to death.
No.
Not in the way they said that. Anyway, the neck would break first.
Exactly.
If you were shaking it that hard.
Exactly.
And if it was that, yeah. And you can't shake. It was proven. I don't know if you've heard of a John Lloyd. Lloyd.
I haven't heard of him.
He is a biomechanic. I think he's a biomechanic. He did a very good. Well, I was at a Shake a Baby conference, and I was speaking at the conference, and he was speaking as well. And he was fantastic. His name's John Lloyd.
I'll look him up.
He was on Facebook. He did get destroyed by, well, because he showed like dummies, and how he proved categorically that you cannot shake a baby to death.
Wow.
It's impossible.
John
And he
Lloyd.
showed his biomechanics. John Lloyd.
Yeah, just a comment from the chat now. Sandy Smith says he can prove that the government destroys records on people getting injected with untried meds, especially when he was. I know the guy personally. When he was in a children's home, they sent the UK children to Canada and Australia and the US, and they was basically guinea pigs for medicines and for injections, and he's got all the evidence.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. Also, while we're here, so I don't forget, Christina's done a couple of books. One of them's Shaken Baby Syndrome or Vaccine-Induced
Encephalitis.
Yeah, our parents being falsely accused. She's also done. Hang on, I've gone the wrong way. The last book we mentioned earlier, Vaccination Policy and the UK Government: The Untold Truth, and the Shattered Dreams, the HPV vaccine.
PV vaccine exposed.
Yeah. And a new website, vaccineinjustice.co.uk. You'll find all that on there in the latest articles.
Wow. And quite a few of my articles. I was working for the Liberty Beacon, but sadly, Roger, the person that ran it, he had a stroke, and then he had a heart attack, and then he had another stroke. So I don't know. I haven't been able to get hold of him for a while. So my articles, I had nowhere to publish. So I asked Andy if he'd get me a website going so that I could publish again, because there was nowhere to publish my articles. I was on Green Med Info, I was on Health Impact News, I was on Fact Truth, many different websites have used it. The Truth About Cancer. I think it was called The Truth About Cancer, that one as well. And I've written for very many people all over the world, and I've written for what was it called? Weekly Blitz in Pakistan. So I've been writing for many different websites. But now, unfortunately, because of the damage they've done and how they shut the websites down, and they try and make it so that you can't contact anybody, unfortunately, I've lost places to go and publish my work. So I shall start just publishing again on this website. And people can either read my articles or they don't have to if they don't want to. It's up to them. It's there if they want them.
Yeah, we've linked Mary's childhoodshots.com in our list of favorite websites.
Yeah.
I put it in the chat, Mary, if you could maybe do the same.
Okay. Well, some of my links on my website are not working. I'm actually trying to find someone who can help me, but mine is childhood. Do you want me to put an actual link in for you?
Yeah, you can put it in the chat just in case somebody sees it later on.
Okay, I will do that. I'm going to go on and pull up a link right now. But
And
no,
of course
we all have to do our part. Nobody can sit back. We have to do whatever we can.
Yes, I think it's a case if it's being a joint effort, and just seeing how it goes, because the more people that get to speak out, and the more people that expose the truth, the better it'll be. I mean, I'm absolutely amazed that my books haven't been banned, but they haven't. So at the moment they haven't anyway. It's not to say they won't be, but yeah. I self-publish on Amazon.
I did too.
Yeah, that's the way I did it. Yeah, I did find it hard with the formatting. I've had to have a company do that.
Yes, my daughter. I have two daughters that are chiropractors, and one of them is also a nurse practitioner. But one of my daughters agreed to do all my footnoting for me because that's stuff they learned in college. I didn't learn. So she was very
No.
helpful. She did a lot of editing for me. So
It is very, very hard to format the books for Amazon. I've just written a new book, but it's got nothing to do with vaccines whatsoever. It's about one of my little dogs because I also adopt disabled dogs.
oh my
I've got
goodness.
seven dogs and one that I do shared care, and 5 of them are very disabled, and one of them's got a prosthetic leg.
Boy, you
And
are dedicated to helping those, aren't you? That's
I
good.
love dogs. I do.
Yes.
So that's the latest book is about the dog. But other than that, all my books about vaccines. The last book I wrote, Shattered Dreams, I compiled it. I didn't write it. I had authors from all over the world, all the top ones, and actually Brandy Vaughan did the foreword in it. And that it's compiled with, I think I've got 13 different authors from all over the world. Some are naturopaths, some are Chinese medicine, some all doing the HPV vaccine and exposing the truth about HPV vaccine. Some are homeopaths, some are regular GPs and doctors. So it is really, really good to have a look at it because I've only written a couple of chapters myself. It was actually a book that I compiled to help somebody. And she's now doing very similar work to what we do, exposing vaccinations. She's exposing the HPV vaccine, and her name is Amanda Drew. And the book was really to help her family and her daughter in particular. And that's why we wrote the book, because we didn't know how we could get the truth out there. And we thought, well, if we compiled a book, and it's 800 pages, so it's really, really very big. And very
Wow.
hard, and it's all full of, it's even got a hormone expert in it. It is
Wow. That's a big book.
incredible to
Right?
read because you've got all the different people from all over the world. You've got Vera Schreiber, you've got just about everybody in that book.
Wow.
So it is good to have a look at, and that's called Shattered Dreams: The HPV Vaccine Exposed.
Oh, it's so sad what's happened to the young girls. You know, they go into ovarian failure, they can't have babies.
Yes, yeah.
It's all very, very sad.
Well,
So
Christopher Exley's written a chapter in it as well about aluminium or
okay.
aluminum.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
it looks like we're
I
Are
think
we
it's about
wanting to call it a day then? We've had the hour, and
yes.
there's going to be a lot of
Yes.
questions. People can email in, they can comment on YouTube, and we'll answer every question. And if you've got any questions for Mary, childhoodshots.com, and Christina, vaccineinjustice.co.uk, for now at least.
And if you want a copy of that report on how the coroners do not do proper autopsies, I call it my scientific brief on SIDS. You can email me, mary@marytocco.com, and I will send you a copy because I'm just trying to share it with as many people as I can.
And I'll try and link it with the show because I did last time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Well, nice meeting you, Christina.
And you. It's been a long time. We've only ever spoken on Facebook, but it's lovely to